Actually, as you watch this, I am live on stage for an association, and at this point, I will have already given my keynote and will be facilitating a panel discussion with some really incredible humans who are going to be sharing their insights for the association. So I can't be here live, and actually, this is the very first time that 3:15 p.m. hasn't worked since I started doing my lives back in the spring. And I know that you will actually know it's the second time, but doesn't even matter. So what I've decided to do today is to share with you an interview that I did with Rory Mitchell. I was actually the guest in this interview, and so he's interviewing me. And he has a podcast called The Mitchell Report. I encourage you to check it out. He always has some really cool guests and great conversations. And I'm just going to let it flow right into Rory's podcast. You can watch this as an alternative to seeing me live. And of course, I will always check out your comments when I'm back online. So I hope you have an amazing day. I'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow's plan is to review the book Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. So that's this week's book that I've read, and I look forward to having that conversation with you. I will see you on Thursday. Until then, please stress less, do more, and be happier. Bye for now.
So, all right, this is what we're going to do today, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back once again. Another edition, another episode, another brilliant guest. You know, the hometown of London, Ontario is not only a hockey country or hockey city, hockey town. We got the London Knights. We got the London Majors. We got all these different sports teams, but we're here to talk about some entrepreneurship. We're here to talk about some speaking. We're here to talk with a brilliant mind, a keynote speaker, an author, and more importantly, a smiling face that brings the serious thunder with her content all over social media. Allison Graham, what's up?
Awesome. Oh, it's so good to be here. And I love that. It brings the serious thunder. Is that what you just said? Like, I'm totally going to quote you. I love that.
You know what? We could be in the business of making money right now. So if you want to put that on a shirt and we trademark it, it can happen. How does that sound?
All right. I'm all in. I'm all in. So it's about time we get to have this conversation, because we always have awesome conversations offline, and now we get to do it online.
I know, on the Mitchell Report Unleashed podcast. But you're such... this is not even about me. This is about you. And I have some questions, right? And I know you're going to bring the answers. What made you this keynote speaker? Oh. I know it's generic, but it's a conversation.
No, that's all right. It's not a generic story, although maybe other people have gone through the same thing. I often joke that if enough people ask you for the same advice over and over again, that you can charge for it. And that's what we call consulting. And when you basically have enough, like a leader who wants to have you instill some advice on their team, that's when we start to call training, and then you can grow that into the keynote speaking. And so early on in my career, I was someone who, I worked as a bartender, I worked as a receptionist, and I was so afraid of networking, and I didn't know where to go, who to talk to. And I learned really quickly, maybe not so quickly, but I learned a lot of hard lessons very quickly, and ultimately ended up getting really comfortable networking with, meeting all these executives, and I got involved in politics, and I started to get job offers. And people were like, can you come and work for us? We just need you to open doors for our people, and they'll do all of the stuff. You just need to do business development. And I'm like, I'm not so sure I want to work for you. Like, all due respect. What if I could teach your team how to do what I did? And so that was and I remember sitting on a patio with an executive, and that was my response to him when he said, come work for us. And I'm like, no, I'll just teach your team how to network. And I did. I went in, I created all this content. I'm like, how am I going to teach them? And then I realized, like, there's this entire industry of speaking. And I've been blessed to be 15 years in business. It has been a roller coaster ride. I have tested every, piece of resilience in my body, and sometimes felt I had to be resilient from having to be resilient. It's like been a real long road, but I'm very blessed. And I have big visions to keep going. I want to be a stadium level speaker eventually. Those people who do the big rallies, and yeah, that's my goal.
Well, you know what? I said this to you before we hit the record button. A lot of your work is on LinkedIn. It's on Instagram. And every time I open up LinkedIn, I see you're the first post. So that tells me that the algorithm's working in your favor. And, we're only a couple minutes into this, and the people just need to check out your work because you bring it, you bring that thunder, like I said. You have such this charismatic enigma to yourself, right? That shows that you believe in people, you believe in people, and you believe in building better solutions for this world. And I love it. You know what I mean? So keep up that good work and things like that.
Thank you.
No,
you know what? I truly believe that people they're feeling a lot of stress, a lot of destructive stress. And a lot of people are really unhappy and struggling in their circumstances. And I believe that a lot of that can be removed through daily resilience. Now, not to be confused with resilience does not take away the suckage, right? Like if you're going through something that's awful right now, if you're hitting tough times, then you've got to be able to navigate that. But when you master resilience, you can do so in a way that you're like, I'm okay. I've got this, right? Like getting through the crap when that's what I want for people. I want people who are suffering or not believing in themselves or not feeling that there's any hope or can't see the silver lining in a situation or, to use that phrase, people who can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And there's so many times in our lives when we can feel that way. And my philosophy is you need to be your own light. Be your own light till you can see that light on the horizon. And so if I can just a little bit of, inspiration to people to give them a different way to think about something that they're going through, then my day is done. And it's been a good one, right? Like that's what I live for.
No,
that's
I
what
love it. I love it. No, and I love that. I love that you can speak about that because it goes into like the stress aspect, where we know, and it's always the same thing over and over. I always say in all my conversations, the last 20 some odd months, we know what we've been through. A lot of stress, people losing work, businesses folding, but there's this new sense of pride through. Some people talk about financial freedom. Some people talk about, being a better entrepreneur and things like that. What are two things you feel in your personal, professional views that we can do to minimize the declutter of stress?
Oh, okay. Just two. All right. First thing is just because something. Yeah. So just because something is going wrong does not mean it needs to, in fact, be stressful. So we as a society have a tendency to bucket everything under the word stress. And I think that it actually does a disservice to your ability to be resilient. So what we want to do instead is look at the difference between tasks, obstacles, and adversities. And this is pivotal. It was pivotal for me when I was maybe we'll talk a little bit about my story, how I became so passionate about this topic of resilience. But it was pivotal for me to be able to, when I was physically unable to work full time, with 2 to 5 hours of functionality a day, using this model actually allowed me to build a successful business on this, while I was managing my health. And so tasks, obstacles, adversities. Tasks are things we need to do. Obstacles are things we need to solve. And adversities are things we need to heal from. And as a society, we reverse, I think, our emotional contribution to each of these situations. So when we have a lot of tasks, people say, oh my gosh, I'm so busy. Oh, I'm so stressed. And I'm like, yeah, you just got a lot of stuff to do. And that doesn't technically require an emotional contribution. We just have to get it done. And most obstacles that we face in our life are pretty par for the course. Like they're not that, it's just stuff we got to deal with. And when we put a high level of intensity around them, adding the story, adding the drama, adding the worrying, adding the procrastination, this whole series of, parts of the human experience. There are 31 of them that I identify in my new book. I call them barriers to performance. Whenever we add those onto our tasks and our obstacles, we actually are stealing our capacity to do, to be, to feel, and to process what really matters, which are the adversities. Those are the life things, as you say, like somebody going out of business, right? Well, they can't just, okay, well, I got to let that go and move on. They got to process that, right? Losing someone you love, you've got to have the space to grieve. Being afraid of cash flow, being concerned about COVID, trying to manage, your kids missing a school year, right? Like all of that kind of stuff, we need to have the emotional capacity to actually process it and deal with it effectively. But as society, as I was saying, has reversed this. So tasks we glorify. Oh, I've got so much to do. I'm so busy. Adversities we actually minimize and diminish. How are you doing? Oh, I'm fine. You're not fine. You're going through a shitstorm. Like, we got to deal with this, but they're so busy and so caught up on the stuff that really doesn't matter. Like, it matters in the grand scheme of we got to do the tasks of our life. We got to do the tasks of our job. But that, for me, that separation was absolutely pivotal, because then I could look and I could say, oh, wait, these are just tasks I've got to do. What emotion am I putting around them? Unnecessarily. What barrier to performance am I adding? What negative storyline am I adding? And then I could strip that away with that self-awareness and just get the task done. And the faster and more efficiently we get our tasks done, the more time we free to heal. In my case, it was from surgeries and some neuropathic pain, but also the grief of losing people I love, etc. And so that piece is huge. And then the second piece with regards to resilience and what I think is really pivotal in terms of thinking is so often we talk about bouncing back. Have you heard, like, you got to bounce back, and don't worry, you'll bounce back.
Oh yeah.
And I believe, like, if we could delete that phrase from our human, like our vocabulary, I'd be so thrilled. Because I believe it does a disservice. Just like bucketing everything under the word stress, it makes it like sort of overwhelming and we think we're completely disempowered. But bouncing back is even worse. And here's why. The very notion of change is that what was no longer exists. So when we're trying to bounce back, we're actually, there's nowhere for us to go. The place we're trying to get to, people say we're going to go back to normal. Let's get going back to normal. I'm like, there is no back to normal. There's a pre-COVID life. We got to grieve that, people. That we got to let that, like, process it. I won't even say let that go, because it's too big an issue to just let go, right? Like, we got to process it. So I think that was really important. And I know the time when that was really brought to my attention was when I was sitting across from my neurologist. And this was what launched my desire and my passion for the topic of resilience. And I was sitting across from him and I was just like, not screaming, but like if you were to have like an ugly cry and then add a high pitched squeal on top of it, like that was me in the hospital. And I was like, you have to take me back. You have to take me back to my pre-surgery body. I cannot handle the pain for one more second. And at that point, I'd have 5 surgeries. First one went wrong, tried 5 more trying to fix the damage from the first. And, hundreds of doctor's appointments and procedures. And I was just like the essence of burned out, like just the essence of it. Mm-hmm. And he said, Allison, you are never going to work full time again. You are going to be on medication for the rest of your life. And it's time that we talk about you going on disability. And through those tears, I knew that that wasn't the answer. I knew that giving up and letting this pain, this surgery, this thing that has happened to me, define the path forward. And to feel like at that point, I didn't have hope. I couldn't see it. And that's why I'm so obsessed with, like, when we have a little bit of hope, when we know one day there's a light that we're going to be able to come to, we can be happier and we can find our path forward. Right. And he said, then, because I said, like, that's not the answer. And he said, well, then you're going to need to learn to be resilient. And my first understanding is when I went out and I told my friends that, oh, you got to be resilient. They're like, yeah, you just got to bounce back. And I'm like, I feel like that's not going to be my answer because I can't go back. And all the time I'd been chasing, take me back to before the surgery, take me back to before the pain. I was wasted time on my trying to figure out how do I be okay with it and be at peace with a new path forward. And so those are the two, you asked for two things related to stress. So the long answers, but one is to stop trying to bounce back. Got to deal with the present moment, our true ultimate circumstance of what today has to offer, and figure out how we're going to move forward with peace and contentment. And we have to stop obsessing about the tasks and free our capacity to process the adversities. And those two things to me were pivotal in my journey, and I've worked with clients on that.
Wow. Like that's a masterclass in itself. And what it tells and what comes up for me is the art of storytelling, of how you talked about your story to get you to where you are now. And it's something that I push so much. I say, whatever you're going through, put your pain and make it deliver to the passion, to make it help educate and let people appreciate. You know what I mean? It's like we're rhyming words today. I feel like it's Dr. Zeus, but it's Rory and Allison, you know what I mean? And things like that. But, you know, my biggest thing for me is that word busy. I try not to use that word busy because some people say, oh, what are you busy doing? I say, I'm more productive. When I say I'm productive, it tells you that I have a lot going on. I have a 9-to-5. I got the podcast. I got the coaching. I got the content creation. It's not busy. It's productive.
Well,
those little
and it's even, yeah. Sorry, keep going. Yeah. Because I was just going to say, celebrate that because it's you choosing how to fill your calendar. So whether it's jam packed or whether you've got 20 hours a day to watch Netflix and, have a marathon on your couch, that's your choice. Every person has that choice. But we're busy, quote unquote, doing something. It's just when people are highly productive and they've got a lot of balls in the air and they're making a lot of things happen like you are, right? Which is absolute respect for everything you've got going on in your vision and how you're growing and serving people. Like it makes me giddy with an excitement, right? But that's just you choosing how you're showing up every day. And so you're not busy, you're making choices that are serving your bigger mission.
Exactly. And what that does, it gives you those daily affirmations, and I say it's not for me. It's not about how many likes and stuff like that I get. I know that I'm impacting people. When you can read comments and you're seeing transformational comments happening, it's rewarding. I was out the other night and we're both in the city that I'm from, London, Ontario, and people know where I work, right? We don't ever say it on the podcast. And you see how you touch people through transformation, not through transaction. When people can come up to you, and I know it's COVID and people are going to be like, well, you got people coming up to you, embracing you, shaking your hand, putting their arm around you. Like you're such a wholesome person. And for me, when you get that type of acknowledgement, I am so humble about it because it makes me want to go back in my shell. Not because I'm shy, but it's like I know how to take that, but it's not what I'm doing that for. I don't do a lot of this for the recognition. I'm doing this for the impact. You know what I mean? And that's the thing that's
a big
my grandfather enlisted into me. You know what I mean? And that's why I tell people, like, it's not about being a public figure or having this X amount of followers and being this, whatever you want to call it, for your celebrity, whatever. It's not about that. It's just about being human and wanting to see that we have 7 some odd billion people in this world. All it takes is one person to inspire and lead that charge. So why can't we do it with a collective group of people that we have in front of us?
That's beautiful. That's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
Like,
but you're awesome also too.
Well, but you know what? That's the beauty, is that awesome doesn't beget or doesn't nullify awesome. Everybody can be awesome together. Like, I truly believe it's high tide raises all ships. And so the more your voice is amplified out into the world and touching people and inspiring people, and then my voice is amplified and everybody else who wants to serve others. And, you know, the post I put this morning on LinkedIn, it started with the greatest reward is being a part of somebody else's success story. And like meaningful impact for one person is more powerful than superficial scrolls from 1,000. And when you think about the ripple impact, like your grandfather instilled in something in you that now is having a ripple effect to thousands of people, one day millions, potentially already, I don't even know for sure. And you don't know, because you don't know if you say this and then somebody does this. And so, and it's interesting because you don't even know when you're saying it, or that something is going to impact. So I'll tell a little story so Kimberly Miner, who is, if you look her up, she's trying to do some work around helping victims of domestic violence. She herself is a survivor, and she and I met during COVID through an organization that we're a part of, C-Suite Network. That's less relevant. Anyway, I helped her build her online program and get her started. And, you know, I show up as me, right? And I see the light in people. I see their opportunity. And one of the things I try to do is help people get through that internal messenger of BS in their head that's usually talking them out of opportunity. And so something happened a year and a bit ago that I gave her the idea. I didn't even know this, or the inspiration or something. And she ended up following her dream, building this out. Now she's doing something for some counties in Florida on the domestic violence. And she got this huge contract and opportunity. And she called me and she said, Allison, it wouldn't have helped. It wouldn't have happened without that conversation that day. And maybe she'll see this podcast and she'll tell me what conversation it was. Because I don't know. I don't know. And like every one of us, like, that's not to pat me on the back. It's about showing up, every person as best you can, doing what we can for others. And then there's this ripple, this domino effect that can happen, and we don't even know. So now, according to her, because of a conversation and something that I said that twigged for her, it wasn't even that I said something brilliant. It was just that different people can say things that you already know in a different way. And then it kind of registers in your brain and you go, oh, right. Yeah, I get it. Oh, now I'm going to do that. And we can move forward. So because of a conversation last spring, now she's doing this down in Florida, and all those women, like, she's training police officers and helping them understand domestic violence, and like all of these incredible things are happening. But each of us, if we were to trace back our lives, imagine, like, your very first podcast could have had that impact on somebody, and they may never even circle back to tell you. Like, that's how we get to 7 billion people, each one of us showing up and influencing one.
You know, as a quick disclaimer, it's crazy because I always have talking points on the podcast. And I will say this right now. The talking points that we have are so in alignment. And I never give my guests the questions ahead of time. And I look at my talking points and I'm like, did you hack my computer? You must have hacked my computer. Because the crazy thing about this is that we're not even on pace. But all the talking points I wanted to mention about are here. So that's amazing.
Oh, I love it.
That
is
shows
awesome.
you
That's
through the power of,
yeah.
When you're in line and you're in sync, and when you're in the power of collaboration, which goes back to social media. So when we think about the power of collaboration through social media, and you just alluded to what networking means, how important is social media, you feel, when it comes to networking? And I want to take a little bit more of a deep dive to this. I feel like some people sleep on the consistency aspect about building the content, when right now we're in the now when it comes to content. You need to be able to build content almost every single day now, because if you don't, people forget about you, because we're in that quick access of world, you know, where if you don't post something, if you're in the health and fitness space, you know how many other people are in the health and fitness space? So shout outs to the ones that build the content every single day as an example. Us for entrepreneurs, I feel like that's starting to become a big market. Everybody has a different talking space. But for you, how does social media determine how we network and build our respective platforms and channels?
Yeah, so social media, it's interesting you mentioned about the consistency, because I have in the past wondered why I wasn't getting the level of traction I thought I wanted to get. And the answer is always comes down to consistency. Like, to the point where years ago, I guess I want to say 2012, maybe 2000. Oh God, that's a long time ago. No, not quite that long ago. It actually could have been, because I started Twitter in 2007. So you know what? From then on, if I would have been consistent, if I would have been pushing it out there, I would have millions of followers by now. Like so many of the people who I met at different conferences, I would run out, like, I'm like, we started, I had more followers when you started, and now you've like gone like through the stratosphere. And at first, I'll admit, I was really jealous. I was like, oh, I don't like that. And then I realized, part of my resiliency work, first of all, high tide raises all ships. If she does it or he does it, I can do it. So let's use that as an example. But I also was able to look myself in the mirror and go, Allison, you weren't consistent. You weren't doing the thing for a long time. So anyway, I made a choice and I said, that's it. I am full on. I'm going all in on LinkedIn. And I started, I'm going to say about November of last year, getting just like, I'm not letting up. And I think what happens with a lot of entrepreneurs is that when they get quote unquote busy, or they have more things to do, that the important but not urgent, which is where I would put the social media strategy in that category, that tends to go by the wayside. So it's really easy to be like, oh, I've got enough business this month, so I'm not going to post anything. So right now, my routine on LinkedIn is I do 4 lives a day at 3:15 Eastern, Monday through Thursday. And those are, it's interesting because I don't have a lot of people sometimes that show up on the live, but I am blown away by the number of people who I've reached out to and said, hey, how's your team doing? Would you like to talk about my training work? Because I'm doing proactive sales on top of that. And I'll get a response that says, oh my gosh, I see your lives all the time. Not when you're doing it live, but I always watch the replays. And yes, of course, we'd love to talk to you. So that's where I think social media can help support the networking, because if you're consistent, so I do the 4 a day, I put up my 30-second tip a day that I put on Instagram, and now I'm going to start transferring those over to LinkedIn as well. And then I do written posts when I feel inspired to do written posts, which generally is about 3 times a week, and throw in a couple polls until everybody's absolutely completely sick of polls, and then we won't do them anymore. But like, it's a 2 to 3 times a day almost on LinkedIn. And because of that, when I reach out to somebody, it does 2 things. Number one, you're top of mind if you're already connected with them. But also, when you reach out to somebody new, they're going to go look at your feed and see if they want to be connected to you. And if you're creating fresh content, if you're showing up like, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, and this is how I can serve you, then they're more likely to accept your request. So that's a huge piece of the puzzle. The other thing I figured out with LinkedIn is it's not just about the content you create. It's about how you engage with the people, the content that other people create. So you can, like my followers, the new followers on LinkedIn, and I'm obviously making an effort to grow, is they come not from my content. They come from when I go on somebody else's content and engage with a thoughtful comment on their following, like on their thing, and add to their conversation. And then those people start, reply. Like sometimes for a couple of weeks, I'll keep getting notifications of a reply on a reply that I did on somebody else's post. And it's like, who are these people? I don't know. Like I just had and then the other thing is that the networking is not just about building your network of, prospects. It's also finding the people who you can collaborate with, right? Or whose wisdom is exactly what you need to hear in that one moment. And I don't believe in reciprocal tit for tat networking, like you do this for me and then I owe you one and I'll do it for this. I believe it's more boomerang and like your circle, right? Like you put good karma out in the world and it's going to come back to you, and not always from the same person who you give it to. And so the other day I was talking with a guy in the UK who is a master at creating visual elements to support a speech. And right now, I'm not going to hire him. It didn't make sense in his timeline. He can't do that. But he and I spent an hour together. I helped him with some stuff, just some thinking and whatnot. And he gave me some ideas for like, here's how you can up your game on that. And I was like, if I wasn't active on social media consistently, I would not have had that interaction with that human being to create this new connection that is like, and that's what it's all about. And it's a long game. It's like, it's taken till like, I am now with the speaking. So since November of consistent, and by the way, years on LinkedIn, but being inconsistent, meaning, oh, I didn't have a plan. I didn't know like once a week I'm going to do this and once a week I'm going to do this. I just would like, oh, I feel like it, I'll do it. But I'm just now, like I had 4 incoming speech requests last Wednesday. 4. I've never had that in my business. I know there are a lot of speakers who are like, yeah, I get that all the time. I don't. I'm like, that's fantastic. You know, like if over the course of a week, I can have 8 or 10 opportunities, like 4 in one day, but like that's not just include the other 4 days of the work week. Right. And so when I can get that coming in, then who knows what my business is going to look like in a year from now. But the key is, even when business is booming, even when I'm back on airplanes and flying out to conferences, right? Even then, we've got to keep the consistency on the social media. Even more powerful when you're busy, right? Like not busy, but when your schedule is full with your business. Yeah.
You know, I'll say this right now. That's a masterclass, and I don't even have to say anything to it because I say this all the time. I've said this to a lot of people that are content creators. If you're a podcaster, I don't know, whatever you're doing on social media, stay consistent. I'm going to echo that with you. I'm going to take a little bit of a deep dive. I say to people, follow the people in your circle's patterns. Watch how they're doing things. You don't have to necessarily duplicate it, but watch what they're doing. Exactly, right? Masterclass time. So when you watch what the people in your inner circle are doing, you'll start to pick up sudden cues. I'm not saying I'm a social media guru on Instagram, but I know what I've done to get to what I need to get to. And a lot of people are like, well, he gets like that many comments and that many likes. You talked about that with yourself. The jealousy aspect. Don't be jealous. Ask those questions. No. How are you impacting? Well, there's hacks out there. There's hacks. And I mean, you got to know how to build your connections through all these other platforms. Let's go back to LinkedIn. Organic reach. It's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy to see the organic reach. And now everything is starting to pivot to video. Wait, you do videos. I do short snippet clips on Instagram also too. They want you to stay on the platform as long as you can, but you have to make sure that these videos are gripping people within the first 10 seconds, 15 seconds. You know what I mean? That's what it all comes down to, because people now are going to want to pick up their phone like this and they're going to be like, I'm going to watch what Allison and Rory are saying either in the morning, afternoon, or the evening. When you batch your content correctly and you know how to deliver it, some people may not be able to watch it the exact same moment because they're quote unquote, like you said, busy, or they're productive. I like to use the productive word. You know what I mean? I like it.
I much prefer that word.
Exactly. But when you're sitting there and you're eating dinner, you're eating breakfast, or you're drinking your coffee, or you're going on a walk, or you're just sitting there, scrap the Netflix for like a half an hour. Whatever show you're watching, it's still going to be there. Watch it when you need to watch it. Maybe watch it on Sundays. Let that be your rest and relaxation time. But what you can have the ability to do is tune in, look at this content and say, oh, that's how I can 10x my business. I can 10x my opportunities. I can 10x my growth. It's serviceable to you when you see people in your network doing some brilliant things. You know what I mean? But right back to you there, Allison, if you want to chime in on anything there.
Oh yeah, so many things. I should have been taking notes while you're doing it. First of all, love the idea of looking for the cadence and the ideas of what other people are doing and figuring it out. And actually, I'm going to come back to something that's a different idea around that. Second of all, yes, if I wasn't clear on the jealousy piece of that, don't be watching people's vanity metrics, because there are a lot of ways that you can cheat the system and show up to be a way that is not actually authentic, right? There are a lot of people who have a lot of views on social media that are not either legitimate views. They might be bots. They might be part of a gang of, engagement. Like there are lots of different ways you can try to cheat the system. So we don't want to be that. Jealous does absolutely nothing. It takes us away from our sweet spot of performance, productivity, and profitability. So I wanted to pick up on that. A little hack I just want to share with you, because you're already doing videos on Instagram. So as am I. But I was just leaving them up there and not putting the 30 seconds up on, because I felt like nobody was watching the stories, and stories are only 20 seconds. And my tips are usually between 20 and 30 seconds, 30 max, because that's Instagram Reels, right? But here's what I do. I go in and I save to my camera roll so that the captions are in the video from Instagram, and I put that up to LinkedIn. So it kind of looks like it's more gripping because the captions are already in there. Maybe the stickers are already on there, whatever. So then I'm uploading the actual reel into Instagram directly. So that's just a little hack that I came up with that I think makes it really easy. And then there was something else you said that was so brilliant. And I'm like, oh my God, we have to put a big staccato note on that. And I can't remember what it was.
I said so much right now, so I don't even know what
I know.
I said.
I don't even know what it was. It doesn't matter.
It's
okay.
quotables.
So
yes.
Here's the other piece. One of the reasons I do so much on LinkedIn right now, and why I'm so committed to being consistent. And by the way, the consistency comes when you decide on a plan and there is no option. It's like, come hell or high water, at 3:15, I'm going live. Some days I might be 2 minutes late, but not much later. And only once, because I had to go into the hospital for something, did I upload a video at 3:15 to play at 3:15. So basically saying you got to honor your commitments or whatever. So that's fine. But it's because it's a non-negotiable. But here's the other benefit of being consistent on social media that I think people don't even talk about, and we need to, is because it's really, really, really good for your own creativity, your own momentum, your mental health. To be constantly if you're a creator, like I'm a creator, like Rory is a creator, then you need to be creating. And when you're not, it's probably going to dull your senses to some degree. And so I know that I can be, I started the 3:15 as a lockdown lift up. When Ontario went into our third lockdown, I said every day of the lockdown, I'm going to do something at 3:15, because I know my mental health. And I know if I'm not showing up and putting on, because I didn't have a lot of business with the lift up, right? Or sorry, not with the lift up, with the lockdown, like in terms of traveling was out of the, just as people were starting to build retreats again for their executives, it all got shut down. So I'm like, I got to stay on top of my game. And so when you create, if you're a creator, that's when you're in your flow state. And when you're in your flow state, everything around you is going to be more in flow. So if you're creating, then your life as a whole, you're going to be sharper when you're, talking to prospects. You're going to be attracting more people into your life, and it's going to force you to hone your material. Because one of the things that thought leaders, as people who create, is we've got to figure out, what do we stand for? What are we actually trying to teach? And at this point, I've done 4 months of 4 times a week, because it was 5 times a week for the first 6 weeks. So, you do the math, but I probably got 100 videos of different types of videos, plus the daily. Oh God, those have been going on since November. So like short form, long form, probably 250 pieces of content that I've created, and loved every second of it. And don't hold me to those numbers. Somebody can go count it if they're really interested, but it's a lot. Right? And that makes my brain work.
that pause moment. It's got to make it work. You
Makes it
know,
work.
I tell you, I gear up and I look at this and I'm like, we're in August and it's like we are however many months away for the end of the year. And if COVID has showed me anything, it showed me to lock into the craft, you know, just lock into your craft, lock into what it is you want to do. You know, it's a part of work. And I treat this as work. I treat the podcast, the content creation, being an influencer as work, you know, having that umbrella effect, you know, and I've taken being an umbrella from one of my podcasting friends, Sean Anthony, right? School's Over Now podcast. Shout out to him. Brilliant mind. And, you know, I look at what we do and how we show up. And I know one of the biggest conversations people ask me, they go is, when do you ever stop working? I don't. I really don't. Even when I'm at home, sometimes now, even when I'm at home now, the phone is either in my face and I'm looking at opportunities to what's going to be that next podcasting topic. Who's that next guest that I'm about to prospect? Because I always have to be prospecting. I say podcasting is like a sports team and you're the GM. You got to create the right prospects to build the team, to give value to the community. The community is, you know, in sports is the fans that come to the games every single time. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I have to build enough traction to know how to, you know, get to the spot, you know, and I try not to get that burnout. You know what I mean? I know when I put the phone down and I rest and I sleep for 6 to 7 hours, it's increasing. You know, yes, it used to be 5 hours, 4 hours some nights, but it's increasing. You know, I've built this thing for myself to say, hey, listen, I know why I'm here to deliver, and I'm never going to stop by any means necessary, because it's about setting that legacy for yourself, you know, for the people, the places, and where you want to go. You said grand stages, you know what I mean, for yourself. You know,
I want the big
arenas.
The big stages. Yeah. The arenas. That's the
and
way
you know
to put
what?
it.
You're
I
going
always
to
think
get
of the
there.
stadiums.
Yeah, you're going to get there.
I will.
You're going to get
One
there.
day. Who knows? Maybe sooner than later. But here's the thing. I do want to pick up on this topic of rest, because my old idea. So I used to be so obsessed with working and my mission and what I needed to do long before I was talking about resilience, long before I had the surgery that would have been 2007 that changed my trajectory for my life. I had a Post-it note on my mirror that said, deserve to hit the pillow. And I was holding myself to such a bar that was so like, if I didn't contribute some way to society, I wasn't allowed to go to bed. Here's the risk with that, at least in my estimation, is every few weeks I would collapse. I would be like, I'm so spent. I was doing 18-hour days, working for everybody else, right? And then I would just like, I'd be done and I'd have to collapse. And then I'd spend a weekend on the couch, like, zombie, you know, like just trying to get my breath about me. And then I
The
would,
Walking Dead.
right, ratchet it back up and then go through the cycle all over again. And when I had the surgery and I woke up and it felt like there was a knife twisting into my body, and it basically took it so like I couldn't work, like I couldn't physically do 18-hour days. I had 2 to 5 hours of functionality a day to run my company. And what I found was that with focus, and I talk about this a lot in my book, Take Back Your Weekends, where what I would do is I would use such focused work. I had a deadline, I had accountability, and I had a goal. Like, in this chunk of time that I have, I need to write my column because I used to be a columnist, or I need to do this for a client. And I'll tell you, I got more work done and I was more profitable, quote unquote, per hour of effort than back then with 2 to 5 hours of really solid functionality than I can be now when I'm full-time and have capabilities, still limitations, but full-time capabilities again. And what I've realized is that compressed work that's highly focused and highly intentional can far outperform over the course of a week than 10 hours of just sort of being multitasking, distracted, kind of not working on your priorities, not having things organized, etc. And so now, because I have this ability to, and what I'm trying to inspire people to do is to harness the good stress and stop using the destructive stress that, drowns us, is I can relax with absolutely zero guilt and full gusto without any concern or emotional attachment to what tasks need to get done next. And that to me, because we need the up and down, we need the rest to go with the intensity. Like, we're not designed to be intense forever. Like, that's not how our bodies work. Our bodies are great at intensity, recovery, intensity, recovery, intensity, recovery. And so I used to feel so guilty in the recovery that I was unhappy because I felt like I was wasting my life away. But now I embrace the recovery as much as I embrace the intensity. And that for me has worked. And I've helped with people with that. So just another perspective on the go, go, go hustle. Now, having said that, some people, the 24/7 hustle is what they live for. They love it and they relish in it. And I'm like, all the power to you. Push ahead, people. Go on and do it. Because I do have still physical limitations, am no longer able to do that.
Oh, absolutely. So your book, Take Back Your Weekends.
Oh, yeah.
What was one thing? What is one thing you struggled with, right, when you wrote that book?
The first time I tried to write it was a year before I actually wrote it. And I struggled with a lack of focus and understanding of my content. And because I spent a year and a bit, about a year and a half after that, honing the craft, getting the message solid, I was able to write the book very easily because I knew exactly what needed to go into it. And then the second piece that was probably challenging about writing that book is because it's intended for quote unquote busy professionals who want to balance the life with the work and success, and like lose some of that destructive stress. I needed it to be short, succinct, really easy read. Like, it's a total, like, watch, I'll show you. I think, do you have a copy yet? Have I sent you a copy yet? I think so. But see, look how, oh, well, we got to get you a copy. But you see how it's like all big writing? And like, yes. It's like, you can pick it up, and that was with intention. Like, I've written the other, like the big books that have all the stuff, and like, that was not intended for this book. And I obviously read a lot of books too, but yeah, I've written 4 paper books and like printed versions of books, and then 3 ebooks. But yeah. So I love it.
So did you do that intentionally to make it more have the fun aspect also too?
I don't know if there's a lot of fun in it. I mean, fun. Maybe a little bit, but it's, I did it to serve the audience. And I think that comes back to everything that we do, right? Is our social media needs to be of service to people who need what we have to say, and being okay with there are certain people who don't need it. I did a poll once and it was like, how stressed are you? And like, one of the options was, I'm not stressed. And I'm like, okay, so those are all the people who are not my market. They don't need me. They don't have stress in their lives. But the majority of the people were like, I'm stressed and I don't like it. Right? So those are the people who I want to serve. And there are so many things, like our potential we can get wrapped up in our head and self-limiting beliefs and all of those pieces of the puzzle. And it's up to us to walk the journey, to learn, how do I become more self-aware, and how do I use that self-awareness to propel me to that next level? Like, this is not, resilience, once you've mastered it, is not like you arrive somewhere. Like, it's not like, okay, great, everything's good. No, because when you get here, then you want to go here. And then you want to go here, and then to that next level, and keep striving and striving. Like, that's what makes our lives tick, right? Having something that we're moving towards.
No, definitely. Definitely. Wow. I tell you, it's a mouthful. It's a masterclass. It can be whatever it is, I know some people would have put this behind a paywall and say, you got to pay top dollar for this information that we're giving out today.
Well, funny enough, I say somebody said that to me. They said, Ellie, you're doing these lives every day. And I talk like this, right? Like just shoot the breeze. But, in fairness, I'm usually talking to myself. So it's really nice to have you like actually listening, right? Because when I do my thing. Yeah. But, somebody said you should gate that. Like you should put it behind. And I'm like, you know what? Right now, I'm just all about giving. Like, I'm not going to come on a podcast and try to hold back content because, that's for the gate, So, yeah, Uncle, thanks for saying that. It's, I hope it makes a difference. I hope it makes a difference to one person out there who's listening and is like, I'm going to do that. I'm not going to get emotionally charged.
Yeah. You're making a difference. And I feel like that's what it comes down to. And, when we think about the monetization aspect in that, world that we're in, by all means, 100%, I've thought of ways, how can I do it? But there's a lot of things behind the scenes when it comes down to podcasting, that I know through some of the higher ups, it's kind of hard to put things behind a paywall because then you got to start, knowing how to do your presentation pitches a little bit differently. You're going to have to start getting into things where it's like, hey, they got to sign something off because, hey, you're getting paid for your voice. And if you don't do that, that person can be like, well, you're making money off my voice, but I didn't sign off on anything. And that becomes a whole other conversation for another day. So it's like, there's other ways to monetize. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I say to people, monetization, trust me, there's many different ways to monetize. You can monetize off of Instagram. You can monetize off your podcast. You can monetize of just being a influencer, public figure, entrepreneur, whatever you want to be in this world. You got to go out there. You got to just do it. You got to I can't even speak. I hate when I get to these spaces where I can't speak.
I feel like you are speaking. So you can speak. Yeah. I don't know what you mean by can't speak. You're awesome. You're making a lot of sense to me anyway.
You trip over
I've tripped over many a word.
Yeah. So what you got to do is take that day to make yourself 1% better, right? Find it inside yourself. We all have a talent. We all have some hidden power. We can all find a solution. All it takes is one person to lead. Be that person. Be that actionable person. Get it done. Be like Allison.
Awesome.
Be like Rory and our smiling faces, Before we get out of here, I always like to do this. I give it back to the guest, your keynote speaker. It's brilliant to have this time. And I feel like it's going to happen again. Maybe you never know. I might see you on a big stage also too. Right? Just never know what might happen these days. That can be alluding to something. You never know, right? Power of manifestation. Yeah. But where can everybody check out your brilliant work? Where can they get in contact with you?
Sure. Well, I think AllisonGraham.co, right, is my hub. So it has the book, Take Back Your Weekends, Stress Less, Do More, Be Happier. And that's available, of course, on Amazon. And then I'm going to encourage people, if they're seeing us on LinkedIn, come and join us on LinkedIn and follow along. And as Rory and I are both putting up content all the time. So I would say LinkedIn's a great place, but AllisonGraham.co is my website, the hub, where you can get it all.
I love it. And real quick, because we got a little bit of time here.
Oh, do we? Okay, I didn't know concept of time.
Yeah. When it comes down to editing your content, and I want you to be open and honest here. Do you edit your own content yourself, or are you getting somebody else to do it for yourself? I just wanted to see what your answer is going to be here.
What I think is fantastic is that you're making an assumption that I am editing my content. I'm not. Anything that's going on social is live or is one take start to finish. And so here's a barrier that one has to get through in order to do that. Done is better than perfect. And authentic is, and I don't mean authentic because Seth Godin, every time I hear that word, I see Seth Godin's face pop into my brain saying, you don't have the right to be authentic. Like, we don't want anybody to get up there and be authentic, like authentically themselves. Like, anyway, he has a spiel on authenticity. But what I mean by that is I'm showing up as me. So if you and I were having a conversation off camera, it'd be you getting the same LNG as you get on camera. And when we do that and we recognize done is better than perfect, then we can just riff, right? Like just riff and go for it, and not, because I used to try to do the perfect, and I'd take, like, for a 3-minute video, I'd shoot it like 20 times. And who's got time for that? That's not helpful. So I put up a lot of live stuff. If it's written work, my mom is actually an editor, so I have her edit. She used to edit.
Amazing.
She's a teacher and everything. Yeah. So that's good for written. But even on my LinkedIn posts, I just reread them a couple times before I push send and play with them a bit. So I'm editing there. My videos, like when I do cuts and clips from my speaking engagements, I tend to do it myself. It doesn't mean I should. But here's the problem. When you do that, you're the person who has to pull what clips do I want. And the hardest part of any video editing is trying to figure out what clips you actually want. And then I figure once I've done that, I may as well just cut and paste and clip and sort and split and edit and then throw in my template. So I end up doing it myself. But I would like to eventually, what I would love to do though, is have all these speeches and I have all these lives. What I'm not going to use the time, like my time doing, is cutting them up into like little 1-minute vignettes. Like I could have lots and lots and lots, but then how much content do I need out there? I don't know. But I'd like to have somebody who would just go through and like pull little clips to post on social. But then I'm already posting a lot. So do I need that? I don't know. Yeah. But I would hire that.
Ladies and gentlemen.
But the rest of it I do myself.
Yeah. And ladies and gentlemen, that's the power of editing. That's the power of content creation. You know, there's a reason why I asked you that question, because when somebody is, and I want that to be a teachable moment for a lot of people, knowing that you don't necessarily have to go out there and pay to get somebody to edit your content. All it has to do is create the template. You can get somebody to create a template for you, but self-efficiency is what's key. You know, It holds you accountable also too at the same time.
Well, and it's just sometimes faster. But if it were complicated, like if I were doing complicated videos and like, some sort of documentary style type thing, oh my gosh, yeah. Like, because I just drive myself nutty trying to do it. Right. But if it's just getting stuff out onto social, I think if you're a talking head like I am, right now, I look at some people who have these beautifully produced videos that like with the music in the background and the stock photo image that appears here, like all of that. Like I just don't have patience for that, right? And you're not going to get it from me because it's not authentic for me anyway, right? Like if I started to come out with highly produced stuff, people would be like, huh, what's going on?
Hey, you know what? Just keep doing your thing. Keep doing your thing. Yeah. I'll just keep saying that. Just keep doing your thing, because you have high level content. And I know what program you use also too, which eventually I might move over, but all in due timing. You might have to give me a master class on that one too. Listen, Allison, it's been a pleasure. We're going to do this again down the road because there's so much value that we gave. So I feel like we could make many, many magic moments on this podcasting platform at any given time. So I appreciate you and I appreciate your time.
Awesome.